Tashi Delek and good afternoon Rinpoche. Tashi Delek and good afternoon everyone. May I now start the program for this afternoon. During this program, His Eminence will speak on the topic for about half an hour, followed by question and answers. Questions to put to His Eminence have already been collected. I understand we have received plenty of questions. But if you have any questions, please write it on a piece of paper and hand it to one of the staff members. Due to time constraint, I'm afraid that not all questions would be answered, and we appreciate your understanding. May I now read a brief introduction about Rinpoche. His Eminence, the 7th Gyaltse Yongzi Ling Rinpoche, was born in India on November 18, 1985. He was taken to the Tibetan children's village in Dharamsala after his mother died and stayed there until His Holiness the Dalai Lama recognized him as the reincarnation of his senior tutor, the 6th Gyaltse Yongzi Ling Rinpoche, who passed away in 1983. In October 1987, Rinpoche was enthroned on the seat of his predecessor. His Holiness the Dalai Lama attended the event and remarked, I quote, "I felt a great sense of joy now that Chogdu Rinpoche has come to occupy the seat of Lama Dorje-chan," unquote. His Holiness the Dalai Lama gave the young Gyaltse Yongzi Ling Rinpoche novice monk vows at His Holiness the Dalai Lama's residence at Drepung Lachi in 1993. To continue a monastic lineage. Gyaltse Yongzi Ling Rinpoche also received full monk or bhikshu vows from His Holiness the Dalai Lama exactly 50 years after His Holiness the Dalai Lama himself had received the same from his senior tutor, His Holiness the 6th Gyaltse Yongzi Ling Rinpoche in 1954 in front of the Jo statue in Lhasa's Chokham Temple. The 7th Yongzi Ling Rinpoche entered Drepung Monastic University, which was re-established in the Mongot Tibetan settlement in South India in 1990, when he was 5 years old, and began his monastic studies there at the age of 10. The 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and the 6th Yongzi Ling Rinpoches had all studied at the Drepung Monastic University. Rinpoche received his Geshe degree in November 2016 and enrolled at Kyuto Tantric College in Dharamsala, India in April 2017 for a year of Tantric studies that traditionally follows the completion of a Geshe degree. He completed his studies in February 2018. A formal Geshe degree program was established by the 13th Dalai Lama as one of his monastic reforms. A Geshe is a master of 5 subjects of Buddhist teachings: perfection of wisdom sutras, pranjana paramita, middle way philosophy, madhyamaka, logic or valid cognition, pramana, phenomenology, abhidharma, monastic discipline, vinaya. In 1991, Ling Rinpoche gave his first teaching in South Korea. Since then, he has given teachings and tantric initiations in many countries in Asia, Europe, Canada, the United States, Israel, Australia, and Mongolia, as well as Tibetan settlements throughout India and Nepal and the Himalayan regions including Ladakh and Nonthawa. Rinpoche has also organized and attended many important Buddhist events. Gyaltse Yongzi Ling Rinpoche organized His Holiness the Dalai Lama's historic series of Changchuk Lamrim teaching on the 18 classic stages of the path to enlightenment treatises. They were held at Sera, Drepung, Ganden, and Tashilumpu monasteries between 2012 and 2015, with approximately 40,000 people from 65 to 70 countries attending each year. Rinpoche attended international events dedicated to preserving Buddhist traditions, including the World Peace Puja in Bodh Gaya, India in 2005, the International Conference on Vinaya in Varanasi in 2011, and the Conference on Relevance of Buddhism in the 21st Century in Radgir, India in 2017. Starting in 2004, Rinpoche has also participated in the Mind and Life Institute dialogues held in India between His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the scientists on a variety of topics, such as physics, neuroplasticity, and destructive emotions. With this brief introduction, may I now request Rinpoche to begin today's talk on the Buddhist Science of Happiness. Gyabje Yongzi Ling Rinpoche Cho.
And so today, having come together for this session, so some of you have probably been here this morning, you attended the initiation. It's also possible that some of you have not been here this morning and you've attended now newly. So anyway, to all of you, Rinpoche would like to welcome you and wish you Tashadele.
Buddhist Science of Happiness, right?
Buddhist Science of Happiness.
What is it?
So Rinpoche said, well, today's topic is supposed to be Buddhist Science of Happiness. And so Rinpoche is laughing. He says, I don't really know so much about this topic. So anyway, Rinpoche.
Big problem.
Rinpoche said, well, it's not okay if I don't speak about something. I have to say something.
That's what you got to say. Sure. Maranzu Namshu Tone, that Digi damage. Did it right? This was him done. What? That's done Maranzu Pigay Mashure, Zabuli Delia, that Chusumo shoes touching. What? Chusumo shoes touch. And how do you do to choosing in the that means in Hajangi, catching with the Hachina. What? And it means to get down the Chashi, Cashishu to go to Chua. Chua some Masse, Gapchiglia, Chiglia, Shurgi, Minta, Shurgi, and Chiglia, the Yo taught to Bohra the Yo chair. And you made it Jimna. You get so much joy. I she soon chimpa. She joke that she soon chimpa to there. Dig to that. Wish you see. Look you to my Europe Nani, Arab Nani, Jahal, Maiji, teaching that dig such a month was that this is was.
So in general, Rinpoche says, well, the topic is really how to gain happiness, how to become happier by applying the Dharma, by applying Buddhism. And so basically in this world, there's so many different spiritual systems, so many different religions. And in particular, in the past, religion played a huge role in people's life. It was very important, such that it was a great part of their daily life, and they were very much involved in some kind of spiritual or religious practice. And also in the past, if you look at the historical kind of accounts, religion played a huge part when governing a country. So a lot of countries were governed based on certain religious principles. So Christian, Muslim, so some of the Arabic countries were in the past and possibly now governed by Muslim principles. In India, that's also the case, that religion played a huge part in politics or in how the country was governed.
유럽과 아니 아랍과 세상 대비산에다 디토안에 이제 있다. 아다 최저 없었으면 또 최고 5톤에 지금 그게 계급기 다 아주 지금 장애야. 아니 지금 계급 공유 제약 그거 주의가 이 팬도 갈아서 내내 좋은 됐어. 좋은 요래 이 지수지 실시하게 톤에 아니 아직 그게 그래서 이 꾸준히 얘기해줘야 돼. 이 학교도 지금 상주배야 되게 거야. 계제로 야 다주도 좋은 거였어.
So this was the case in Europe, it was the case in Arabic countries, that the governments were influenced by certain religious or spiritual systems. And so basically different religions were responsible or did influence the laws of a country, the administration, etc. And there was definitely a certain degree of benefit. It brought a lot of benefit to a lot of beings, to a lot of people, in the sense that, as I already mentioned, there were laws, different laws that gave people a certain ethical type of life, and it just improved the quality of life, their well-being, their positive kind of conduct, etc. All those were influenced by these different religious systems.
제때 양초 현진 때문에는 아니 디토는 뇌자 휴지 다 아주 뇌자 뭐고 요나야 이 게베 지금 그게 지속하는 축생이냐 아니 지금 지도 튼제부 하던도 아니 최저로 갑자기 그 시기나 지금 주기 요치야 이제 이 주도네 아니 지금 그게 강에 뭐부채야 지속으로 더시 시라가
On the other hand, there were also a lot of problems that were a result of many of the different religious systems. So it led to conflicts, it led to disagreements between different people. There were ideas such as castes, so based on the religious systems, so castes were developed, dividing people up, differentiating between different people. So basically from the historical accounts, we come to know that also religious ideas have also caused a lot of trouble in different societies.
학교도 아니 지금 그게 가서 최저로 이지지 보내 아니 봐 지금 다른 방법이 내야 그래서 클릭이 이지 라지고 아니 다确实 저는 편도 없어 确实 미국 왔다는 밀이야 아니 지금 좀 그거 매우지 샤시 삼과에 주지 샤치 아니 너무 몰이야 지금 그게 다 evolutionary 서버라 이제 좀 아니 배도 쉬어도 짜도 안 주 민자에 that to go 산에 불을
And because of that, because of those disadvantages, a lot of people nowadays, because of their So not just nowadays, but also in the past, so during the Second World War, around that time, because of their understanding, having grown, becoming more knowledgeable, they started to see the disadvantages of religion and started to reject it, in the sense of feeling that just following blindly a religion had a lot of disadvantages, and they felt that the different laws, what to adopt, what to avoid, they didn't agree with this any longer. And in some countries, you had revolutions, certain revolutions taking place, trying to remove religion to such a degree that you wouldn't even be able to hear the word religion. So they felt religion just were not needed, would just deceive the people, and they basically totally removed any kind of spiritual system, any kind of religion from those particular countries.
So today, it's how to do that. Marxist, so what? Stalin, what? What? Today, to go to Japan, that shows in the Egyptian how to show you the city, Monday,
so in particular, Marxist countries under Mao Zedong, for instance, so at that time, Dharma was totally, the religious systems were totally removed, such they were considered to be systems of blind faith, and they were seen as poison to the people, poisonous and harmful, and therefore, they were actually removed, basically.
So that today, it's how to do it, series in the Akachi, right? Series in the Akachi, which do that, we need to not check, we need to check, that's a check, and Delia, Kasu, to check and to do check. He told me and tell me chairs in the G, and it's a clear soul. Meiji seemed to say that Gigi loves us, gets deep. That shares an energy. And it's heading on we need to try to me, go to the number of major detail should check. So that detail, Beijing should chair.
And so the place of religion was taken by science. So the idea that science deals with reality, it analyzes, it reflects upon reality of how things really are. And so faith and devotion, they were basically they were not considered to be important any longer. So it was not considered to be something beneficial. It's someone just talking about things without being able to prove it. So scientific understanding was the kind of understanding that everyone believed in, the analysis, reflection, and so forth. So that kind of went into the forefront, while religion and so forth were either totally disappeared, or they did not have the same kind of position as they used to have. Of course, science has been of great service to human society in terms of medicine. So there have been a lot of accomplishments in terms of creating new medicine, machines, and so forth, computers, etc. So all these in different areas, there has been great improvement, and they've made people's lives better, easier, and so being able to remove certain diseases, etc. So it's had a lot of advantages. The scientific kind of developments has had a lot of advantages.
So today,
So there have been a lot of advantages, of course. Now, when we want to go somewhere, in the past we would have to travel for many months. Now we can arrive somewhere within a few hours. We're able to, when it's cold, we're able to keep warm. In the past we had to wear a lot of clothes and wrap blankets around us. Nowadays we can be in cold places without being uncomfortable. And communication, we're able to communicate over long distance, so we're able to see each other on the screen, etc. So there's no doubt that the scientific understanding has benefited us, is benefiting us right now. It's very obvious to all of us. And we all can enjoy these different discoveries, or we can all enjoy these different advancements.
제가 그때 인간에 다 알아서 발송을 제게 딱 도움이 생기기 발송을 가지고 등두기다 직비에 와 친구들 이야기 통하는 친구들 자기 몸 세트요 때문에 이내 생기기 하는 가지고다 새로 먼저가 단도지 그게 딱 하나 둘다 동서시 미생 기부치 여러분
So all this being the case, but the question that arises, well, we have been able to remove a lot of problems, but the question that we have to analyze, that we have to think about is, have we become happier? Are we mentally more happy than we used to be? Although we have more facilities, our lives are easier, does that mean we're actually mentally happier?
아니 지금이 지나 와 지금이 제자리에 친구가 얘기해요 대주기 아니 더마쳐가 이거 대주기 아니 지금이 지나요 대주기 세번 남자쳐 남자요 대주기 아니 세번 많이 쳐 어떻게 다 용되는 거였어
So actually Rinpoche says, well, we can actually be pretty clear about it that we have not become happier. And actually, we have more mental problems now than we used to have in the past because of the mental development, because of the material development. Because of the material development, we face a lot more problems. We have more fear, we feel more stress, fear, anxiety, and concern, etc. So for instance, if we have certain things, we want certain things, so attachment, desire, they grow stronger. Once we have more attachment, more desire, then there's more worry, there's more fear that we may lose the objects of our desire or may not receive them, etc. So basically, we become more fearful, there's more anxiety, we become more suspicious, and all that leads to more mental problems, more mental suffering.
제가 그 강에 주시고 채심을 했다. 가래톤에 세통을 했어요. 아니 아주 제주 채는 친구들 톤에 세통을 했으면 다 세통 매를 뭐이리 주고 아트레스. 와, 제세 걔는 세통으로 와. 와, 근데 저것도 보면은 가라야 돼. 하는 식이 그게 많아서 제주 가래 일고 지트니 제세 세통 국경은 이게 딱강에 친구들 톤이 세트야 매를 떼게 와. 갑자기 친구들 톤에 그다음에 세 파션 쌤이랑 퇴화시 되는
So, therefore, is it possible to actually solve these problems, these new problems? Well, it's pretty obvious that material objects cannot actually help us to solve our mental problems. Of course, to a certain degree, a little bit they can be beneficial. Of course, if we are hungry, for instance, we suffer because we're hungry, then taking some food, taking some material objects such as food, well, that will help us. But in the long time, material development of material objects cannot actually help us. They cannot solve all our problems. And they may actually cause us more problems. So not only can they not help us to solve our problems, they create new problems.
So
now with regard to mental problems, how can we solve mental problems? So when our mental problems become stronger, the only way we can actually solve them is through improving our own mind, through transforming, through improving our mind. That's the only way to remove our mental sufferings, our mental problems.
저는 이 비전을 말한 부분에 관해 지금 샘강의 소주에 대답을 드리기 전에 대신 즉 가우시나 차려서 제가 가지고 이제 하나 대신에 내려서 딱히 가려는 내용은 최저 관점으로 아니 샘강의 세트에다 가서 누가 처음부터 뒤에 여기 지금 누가 때부터 만세는 누가 퇴도
So therefore, it's actually, in terms of our mental problems, scientists are not able to really remove our mental problems. So in order to really work with our mental difficulties, well, this is where the Dharma can help us. This is where spiritual, religious systems can help us. How can help us in the sense that they can teach us how to gain more happiness, to be happier, to have less mental problems, and they're able to actually bring forth a result in the sense that not only can they teach us how to go about this, but also they'll be able, if we apply this, to lead to a certain result. So actually we all have the wish to be happy. And Rinpoche says we also have the right, everyone has the right to be happy. And so to achieve this type of happiness, well, the Dharma, spiritual systems of the Dharma, that can really help us to gain greater happiness. So this is something we can all come to know ourselves, that it's the Dharma that can lead to greater mental well-being. So, for instance, from the point of view of kind of dharmic ideas or concepts such as love, compassion, loving kindness, so these kind of ideas or these kind of mental states that are taught in the Dharma, well, they're such valuable mental states that bring us a lot of happiness. They bring us personally more happiness, but they also bring more happiness to the environment we live in, to the society we live in. Why? Because these mental states, these states of mind, have the potential to create mental peace of mind. And so in that way, our own personal problems, through love, compassion, loving kindness, and so forth, our own problems lessen, our own problems become weaker and decrease. And likewise, those of the people around us, the people that we live with, it also affects those around us. So those valuable states of mind, training as part of Dharma practice, training in those valuable states of mind, well, they really benefit us. They're very beneficial. And so it's worth to understand that, first to understand, to get an understanding of that, and then to train ourselves in those different states of mind that bring such great benefit. And so in particular, about love and loving kindness, the kind of potential of these states of mind, their value is immeasurable. In the sense that these states of mind can actually solve all our problems and can give us everything that we're looking for, everything that we need.
Absolutely necessary. Someone resources.
Yes. So, therefore, love, loving kindness, they're always needed. We always need them at all times. So when we're born, from the first born from our mother's womb, and then when we grow up, love, loving kindness are so essential. So we need them at all times. We need them in the afternoon, we need them in the evening. We actually need them to stay alive. They keep us alive, they keep us well. So Rinpoche actually said it in English, they're therefore absolutely necessary. Loving kindness and love, they're absolutely necessary. So when we talk about the training in love, loving kindness and so forth, well, actually no one can deny, no one can argue or debate with the importance of those states of mind. If you look at other religious aspects, for instance, the philosophical aspect of a certain religion, of course we can debate with one another, one can refute certain philosophical views, but with regard to love and loving kindness, there's just no debate, there's no refuting their importance and so forth. So whether someone is a spiritual person, whether one is a religious person or not, it's the same for everyone, needing love and compassion. So even if someone is not religion, doesn't follow religion, doesn't agree with religion, they would not be able to refute the importance of love and loving kindness. So basically, it's something that they would aspire to themselves. It's something they would support themselves, the idea of love and compassion being important and so forth. And those teachings on love and compassion that are so important because all the problems we face in this world are because of the lack or because of not enough love and compassion being present in our society. So within the environment, all the problems that arise in terms of conflicts between humans and other humans, all the health problems we suffer, or many of the health problems we suffer, are because of a lack of love and compassion. Problems between different countries, in different societies, all human problems are basically can be traced back to an absence or a lack of love and compassion. So for instance, also environmental issues, so in terms of saving the environment, etc. Again, problems that arise of their environmental nature, again, those problems arise because of the lack of love, loving kindness and so forth.
이 가르쳐진 것은 그게 쏟아다. 아니 이게 추구한다. 이제 뭐지? 배출 가능한. 이제 이게 베타 그게 블루 셋. 이 게베타 강는 미국시야. 주직을 로아네 사용. 이게 좀 가서 대응만 봐. 대봐. 너 친구. 뭐 무서야. 아니 귀치부채, 왕치부채 이든다. 아니 지금 구유도 주제들이 배 이거를 상관은 가서 배 콜 베트남에 당시 이게 약간 되게 좋았어.
So in particular, Rinpoche stresses again the environment. So from the point of view of environmental changes, so such as floods, global warming in general, so floods and fires like forest fires, different earthquakes, like changes in the environment, etc., storms, hurricanes, and so forth. So all these kind of new calamities that are taking place, well, they're all the result of the lack of love and compassion for others, in the sense that people have become so greedy. There's such incredible greed that makes people pollute the environment, that causes them to build more machines, more factories, and so forth, without any concern for the environmental impact. And so therefore it's this greed, it's this hunger for power and so forth that is responsible therefore for a lot of calamities now that brings a lot of suffering. So this is again because of the lack of love and compassion that these different problems arise that are of environmental nature.
Society to one. And somebody so I need to say, and we are quite him and software. He gives him to create. He gave a set highlights. He better
So basically, in terms of society, it is really important to highlight the importance of love and compassion because of their positive impact, because they can solve so many problems, lead to a lot of happiness. So Rinpoche is saying, because of these advantages, right now they're kind of hidden. They're not really emphasized. The importance of those states of mind are not really emphasized. So it's important to highlight them. And so basically Rinpoche says, in this world there are so many problems that arise from this lack of love, compassion. So when you have like a country, for instance, and a government, so they do try to solve problems, but the way they do so is usually with, for instance, business in mind, with becoming more powerful than other countries. So basically it's all about their own advantage and kind of like leaving out other countries, leaving out other people, not considering them. And so it's most important for a lot of politicians to be on top of things, to have more weapons, to have nuclear weapons, etc. And so other people or other societies are being ignored. And this being the case, it causes so many difficulties in this world. And again, it is because of the lack of love and concern for other living beings that is responsible for this, and this needs to be stressed. So any advancement, any kind of improvement should be done by improving society. So that's the only way to bring forth society, is to include others, so to include society. And so this advice with regard to this teaching on love and compassion, well, this is something that you find in all religions. In all religions, they talk about considering others to be important, to generate love, compassion, and so forth. And also you find this in Buddhism, and there are a lot of very profound explanations with regard to the value of love, compassion, loving kindness, etc. And so these are very important, and it's important to look at those, and if one finds those helpful, to take them on. It's not necessary to become a Buddhist. There's no need to become a Buddhist. Whether you're a Buddhist or not, that is not important, but most important is to take those aspects that you find important, that you find helpful, and that help you to improve yourself and society, and take those on. And if you find there are things in other religions, in Christianity, in Islam, etc., you should take those on. But basically, the idea is that you should take on those things, and you should put into practice those things that help you to improve society and help to bring about a better life for yourself and others.
Science, lab investigation, it didn't pay off. It is semi-year done, Luke there to work. Luke there to be, that's doing the semi, they will basically you get it. But they don't be something. What? How do you get a soul? Inner peace, inner peace to join physical.
So therefore, with regard to today's topic, so basically the science of happiness, or Buddhist science of happiness here, so we're just saying we're not looking at material objects here in terms of the scientific understanding of material objects, but we're looking at the mind. So understanding that love and compassion, that these states of mind make our mind happier. So that's basically the science of the Buddhist science of happiness, that mentally we become happier with these mental factors. And if our mind is happier, then it will have an effect on our body. It will make us healthier. Our body will feel better and healthier. And if we have both a healthy body and a healthy life, well, healthy mind, then we'll live a happier kind of life. And that, in turn, has an effect on the people around us. So if we are better, if we feel physically and mentally well, it'll have an influence, a positive influence on the environment we live in, on the countries we live in, and on the entire world. So in that way, it brings forth greater happiness on a larger scale. And that's it. So Rinpoche says he's got nothing more to add on this. So this is Rinpoche's explanation with regard to this topic.
Thank you, Rinpoche. And now I've got a couple of questions, and what I'm going to do is some of the questions have got sort of a similar trend. So I will compile a couple of questions together to make the life of translator a little bit harder. So the first one is, it says, does Rinpoche know about the tragic fire at the block of flats called Grenfell Tower? It was just around the corner. Many people died, trapped in their homes as the fire rose. Afterwards, there was a scandal where charity money was collected and not given to them. Many people are suffering. They came to this room, this hall, to represent this injustice, as it is the local tongue. Could Rinpoche make a short prayer for them after this morning initiation, if such benefit could be shared? Sorry. The drums the Kambatoza Chulamamachi Nima Meshoy. Meshoy, the Kejulhasi, Kambena Mete, Termaduchi. And he consul Towan Digi, Kungap Kegu, Chesam consul de Moshe and the meat layers, Chesar Muchegi, consul Melamchi, and two years.
정부 대탑병실이라는 말. 이게 안 되게 안 셈제치는 아니 셈가는 거지. 이래 만 모놈 경찰. 알았어. 뒤에는 배도 쳐. 알았어. 셈제치는 강에 세트예요.
So Rinpoche is saying that this situation, this calamity, this was truly terrible. This was a terrible thing that happened there. And so Rinpoche says it's best to pray for those who were affected by this. If now, since it has already happened, we start getting worried, we start getting fearful, concerned, fearful about this, it won't help the situation. It would be better now to actually pray. So without getting upset about this won't help the situation, but rather to do prayers to help those affected through our prayers.
Now I'm going to do a couple of questions together. And it's mostly related to Rinpoche himself. It says, you speak of happiness. His Holiness is a good example of being someone who is happy. He smiles and laughs a lot. Do you feel happy? And you have only laughed twice and smiled once. Do you suffer from stress? And how do you express your happiness? And if I can add a couple more questions related to that. Rinpoche, we heard that about 2 to 3 years ago, you had an accident. We would like to know how you are doing right now. How would you deal with depression in daily life? And the last one, what do you do every day as a young man? What makes you a happy person every day? For example, if I hear any good news, it can be about my friends, my family, and world, then that makes me happy. Thank you.
Smiling is not necessarily a sign of happiness in the sense like if you're really happy and the smile comes from within, that's great. But if you kind of force yourself to smile, that's actually stressful. That's actually difficult. It gives you a headache. You have to smile. So that's actually, it gives you a hard time doing so.
다 도와 야마 주기전에 고백해 주는 거. 그래서 하는 소리야.
So Rinpoche says, with regard to the accident, so Rinpoche had this car accident, Rinpoche is saying these days he's much better, he's kind of almost back to normal in the sense that Rinpoche does a lot of exercise, like he walks every day for about 2 hours, 5 to 6 kilometers, so that actually gave him a lot of physical strength so that he doesn't suffer from the accident any longer. Except when he's here, he's so busy, he's not able to walk much and he feels a little bit more tired just because he can't move as much as he usually does.
And how to deal with depression? But depression said that Tibetan doa. Ni chadang da xie xing ne. Da yin zhuo zhuo sen bi gang ni zhe kan de wo guan. Na di zhe da yi ge so de nam san mi ji ka so de depression gang ni se na de ji ton se tu nam san de xu xian de ke de du guan. Re de yi 지그게 다 두주 중요한 리주도 지그게 조디 아소다 소소 생기면 돼야 되게 이래라 아주 삼목당당 심 차단 지금 이게 좋아 야 근데 내 누구 있어요 근데 뭐도 좋아 사실 지그게 아소다 총야당 이제 삼목 안 되듯이 사실 내가 그때를 못 지금 That's ambitious. Ambitious. We did set up a see what study the one six. 지나가게 돼. 제 소소 카운터도 제마도 해야 돼. 모두 이렇게 안에 생기는 거예요. 지금 소소 전주 받고 카운터 제. 근데 리소스 전담 받고 세죠. capacity 지금 이 딱다 샤도 아니야.
So with regard to the last question, which concerns depression, well, how to deal with depression? Well, first of all, Rinpoche says he's not exactly clear what all the different types of depression. I mean, there's so many different types, so he's not so clear about all these different ones. But in general, well, regarding depression, well, it basically means that the mind is kind of pulled down and it feels heavy, etc. So this can have different causes, and it's important to reflect, for instance, that when problems arise, that this is the result of past actions we've accumulated. And also sometimes we get depressed because we're too ambitious. Rinpoche used the English word like ambitious. We're too kind of want too much, possibly. We think too much. We're too ambitious. And so that could also lead to depression if we don't actually then receive what we actually like to receive, or be able to do what we like to be able to do. So Rinpoche says it's important to work hard, of course, to work as hard as we can and do the best we can, but also to understand our limits and to do as much as we can and basically just do our best. But it's important to recognize also our capacity, what we can do, what we can realistically do, and not to be too ambitious, because that can lead to anxiety, etc. And then there's also medicine that you can take if you suffer from
Now the next question is about anger. It says, anger seems to be a huge problem nowadays. The Dalai Lama talks about how important compassion is. Anger seems to be ingrained in today's society throughout different countries and cultures. From a practical point of view, what can we do on a daily basis to get ourselves free from this anger, this great obstacle to achieve our happiness?
dissatisfaction, 이 개별 공사, 이 개별 안직, 가지고 안직 쉬우직다 구유 정보 주줘야지. 소소이네 배들 소구 주줘야. 착시 예. 다른 신기에 지금 가서 나 공부 사회 가보다 야구 매번 보이는 주제. 공부 사찬에 소소배 못 사는 일이야. 당기 지난 짐에서 이대에 좀 용리고. 제가 이거 때리냐. 거기에 가서 이름이 오지. 차리기 어려워. 아니 공부 때문에 제우 때문에 아니 드라마 다음에 소소를 동네만 봐. 자와 나도 영감 얘기해 봐. 나도 초시세 백해져 보시면서. 초시 맞지? 주주는 야주는 동동 주는 주는 공 다디 지우지 된다 그러는 거 없어. 자 초시제는 삼sem 그것이 좋아. 먼저 초시이죠. 안다는 식이 그게 소소소 처체 시에서 포스트에 되잖아요. 아니 지금 그래서 랑 예시 보면서 저거 디네단 디게변 그래서 미신배 디기다 미신배 지가서 네 웰페어 시와 되는 아니 넥레트 이와 디지털에 아니 당신이 그래서 공부하는 시대에 이와 시에는 제 편도 예전에 쭉 디지 수수쌤 이와 이게 뭐 공부하는 시대가
So basically the reason for getting angry is dissatisfaction. So we need to understand this about anger in the sense that, well, when we get angry, it harms, it affects the environment negatively. It affects our own body negatively, first of all. Our blood pressure goes up. But also on top of that, well, not only does it affect our environment, our body, etc., but also afterwards we feel embarrassed because of the things we've done out of anger. So while we're angry, it harms us. Afterwards, there's a problem. So basically, it's something ugly. It's something that doesn't benefit, and it just has a lot of disadvantages. And it causes a lot of problems. Like, for instance, we make more enemies when we get angry, when we're aggressive. We have trouble with other people. And the main reason is that we're too greedy. We want certain things, and just because we don't get them, or when we don't get them, then we get angry. If we have 100 of something, we want 1,000. When we have 1,000 of something, we want 10,000, and so forth. So it's this lack of satisfaction and contentment, which leads to then anger when we don't get what we want. So therefore, it's so important to generate the kind of opposite force, not putting ourselves in the center, but putting others before ourselves. So to offer others the victory and have the disadvantage ourselves in the sense of putting others before ourselves. So when we do that, then we'll be naturally we have less anger, less aggression, and so forth. So we'll be able with more satisfaction in putting others before ourselves. In that way, we're able to deal with our anger, reduce our anger, and so forth.
And the next question is asking about how to deal with pain. It says, how to deal with the pain of attachment for the death of animals or environmental, plus the exploitation of nature by mankind. So how to deal with the pain of emotional loss outside of our control.
个什么是不落着的是吧？这个一辈跟咱最些呢，俺国家的一点这个单用的那种情况，然后就是走恰当的一点吧，我第一个。
Now, with regard to this question, well, it's actually a matter of confusing love with attachment. So it's important to differentiate between love that cares for others, that wishes others to be well, versus attachment, this form of attachment. So not being able to differentiate between those two. So in order to counteract, attachment, we need to think of the changing nature, the impermanent nature of phenomena. So to understand that everything that comes into existence, everything that is impermanent, that comes into existence, the moment it's there, it starts degenerating. Which means that nothing remains the same. It's 100% certain that things that have come into existence now will at some point go out of existence. So in that way, if we understand the impermanence of phenomena, we'll just be more relaxed, we'll be less attached, we will just go with the flow of impermanence. So it's just like, for instance, out of attachment, we may feel very attached to a cup. So we are very attached to a cup, and one day it breaks, we're really upset. Likewise, if you have a watch we're attached to, again, when it breaks, well, we're really upset. But we should also not only think of the impermanence of those objects, but also to think of the fact that this attractiveness, the beauty of this cup, of this watch, etc., it is just labeled, it's just designated by the mind. There's nothing from the side of the cup or the object itself that has beauty in it. It really just comes from the mind. So if we understand that, then our attachment can be reduced.
The next question asks about how do you get young people to be interested in learning meditation?
How do I get? Same kind of chatting, what? Same kind of chatting, and I'm seeing kind of set up there. That's just in one. And this is just an end, I'm seeing that. They're sort of informed that. I'm seeing the Lord John Chicago. What? So you're also doing it. And you are so when you that, I'm doing that. Diller, you have not said the most of it. Not doing that, open up, right? Yes, I tell you. These are the same kind of change, they can say that. How to say you was. Not to see it. Did you have an answer to give a general search? How she said, and they're totally children.
So Rinpoche said, well, basically when young people have certain mental problems, well, to then introduce this idea that these can be solved by way of Dharma practice, for instance. So through meditation, etc., or maybe through learning about the Dharma, learning about certain techniques so that they can apply them themselves. So just to kind of introduce this to them. But so this is like when someone is sick, you could just offer different treatments. But to actually kind of advertise it, kind of try to get young people to meditate, etc., well, that's just useless work. It's just extra work. The only thing is you can make it available to them, but you can't really get them to meditate, etc. So if you put it in terms of a joke, she kind of said, it's just extra work if you just try to force them.
Now I'm going to combine three small questions together. The first one says, is money the root of all evil? If yes or no, why? The second question is, how do you practice contentment in this world of capitalists? And the third question is, in today's society, how can we balance a culture of never enough with feelings of contentment and satisfaction?
对吧？现在现在第一，你过来过什么当年这个我外国人没有说通嘛，我来你现在好拉人也休息呀，是刚才他说那个 not to be attached, we need what we use what你的现在是，朝鲜背景，朝鲜是세미나 상담만 해요. 그래서 이 상담 이 나눠서 지금 영암 치료치는 거야. 아니 영암 치료치는 제외는 아니 가정치는 아니 고마게 저거에 대해서 그냥 보고. 그래서 초시 제 또 수수 또 좋아한다. 비리 수수 저구지. 그거 대해서 답답한 거 알아. 이 여기 터네. 그 가리 여기 수수 운에 하여튼 시작해 봤을 때 이제 되지. 그래서 말에 또 제일 saya beni şingeliyor, ben beni şingeliyor, ne saya beni şingeliyor, İnsanın karşılar gibi insansız, sanırım çok şey çarpıyor.
So, well, money, which is not the root of all evil. We need money. We need to go to work to make money to be able to buy food, to buy a drink, to get an education, etc. So, Richard says that's not the root of all evil. Is that we do not know how to use it in the right way. That with too much attachment. So therefore it's the attachment that is the problem. Our greed, our attachment, that is the problem. So no one can say the problem is money itself. We do need money, we need to spend it, etc. But we should learn to be more satisfied. So this is also part of the next question, to have more satisfaction, to think about, to use the money wisely, of course, for keeping healthy, to have a healthy diet, to have appropriate accommodation, etc. So we need to pay for all that. But then, if we become too greedy, if we want more, if we want better, etc., well, this is where greed, attachment, etc. come in. And in that, at those times, it's important to think about, to practice contentment by, for instance, reflecting on the fact that there are a lot of people in this world who have a lot less than we do, who are a lot poor, who have less food, less medicine, etc., and to appreciate what we have. And so in that way, we develop more contentment.
And the next question says, in Buddhism, characteristics of humbleness and compassion are taught and advocated. But in today's society, which seems to benefit firstly the loud and proud, how can those who are more introvert and quite also thrive?
So Bruce is saying that, well, actually, Rinpoche doesn't feel that those loud and proud people are really the ones that other people admire. If we look around in this world, it is really those who are humble and have contentment that other people admire. So if you look around, for instance, as homeless the Dalai Lama, Gandhiji, Desmond Tutu, Nelson Mandela, these great beings who work for the benefit of others, their character is usually one of humility, of contentment, of satisfaction, of wanting to benefit others. So those are the examples, those are the people we usually admire that are famous for those qualities. And so a lot less people who admire those billionaires who have a lot of money and who fight different wars, etc. They don't get the same kind of admiration. So it's not necessarily that those who are loud and proud will get a large following. It's really those who are really famous are the ones who are content and humble, etc.
The next question is asking how to deal with psychological insecurity from Dharma path with the help of science. How to deal with the psychological insecurity from Dharma path with the help of science.
Dharma and psychology. Psychological insecurity. 생각하는 도시, 땡즈는 도시. 네, 그런지 다 생각을 하는데 너무도 도시. This
Parti kashure wa semgam de betone kalı şeylerin yeşilişini mi? Yeşilliğin savcı kamu insan. Ben 이제 남주 도가 yeşilde, var. Yeşilde bir çok şey var. Hani çık yeşilde, hani çık çamba zavallı bir ton. Tam onu semdi yüzü yuvardı. Hani müyeni tutura çok olmadı. Diye sanki 좀 dediğim sonuçta olmadı. çık kasole. 农场写过，满足。原罪的 confidence， 对。
confidence， insecurity 来的导致的就是，前面什么 system 什么的，对 confidence，
对吧？
弟弟是。
原罪，那是第二个噻。
第二个。
原罪的其实，所以说长不长线起来，所以说长不长线起来，所以说我呢，两个的前面呢，发生那个前原罪的那里。 다 정보 멤버십 됐어. 그래서 염류 뭐고 유주 참바 와. 이제 엑스레이도 뭐. 뭐 가이스 되는 이게 데베타 되어마. 엑스레이도 해요. 그래서 지점이 정보 transfer 하는 것도 지세도세 와. transfer는 좋아. 이유. 때문에 엑스레이도. 예. 결진 시에는 나도 신한 정보가. 아, 다들 학원에 아니 미 이지식이도 아니 소소 된 제가 다시 미에 주된 제가 다시 미 이지 제도 말 그래서 된주 영용 정보 정신 염두 먹으면 이거 쓰겠지.
So basically, first Rinpoche said, well, in terms of psychology, modern psychology, Rinpoche says he doesn't know enough to be able to talk about that. But from a Buddhist point of view, Rinpoche can definitely give you some advice on how to work with your own mind, as already talked about before. Becoming more content, having more an attitude of putting others before oneself, having love, compassion, etc. And then I stressed in particular with regard to this question, so it's a little bit difficult to translate psychological insecurity. So the way I translated it was like a lack of confidence, like inner confidence. And so Rinpoche's advice for those to generate more inner confidence in terms of an antidote to this lack of security. Rinpoche said to be honest, to be an honest person who's honest and straightforward and works for the benefit of others. So in that way, there's a good ground to be confident. If you're not honest, if you deceive others, there's nothing to feel confident about. But if you're a good person, if you're kind, if you're honest, if you don't deceive others, then you can be very confident. If you're lying, if you're deceitful, then you live in fear because you're worried that others will discover your deceit. But as Rinpoche just said, so if you're honest, if you're truthful, etc., then you don't have that type of fear and you develop a sense of confidence.
The next question asks, will the world come to war over religion? Will the world come to war over religion?
Like a prediction? Will the world?
True. Tony, true. Tony, mine. 지난 겨울에 그래요. 나이는 true. Tony, mine. 겨울에 있을 나랑 좀 좋아. 나랑 좀 가제 그게 주로 tun지 좋아. 주로 tun지 부셔 주로 tun지가 이게 렉처를 제야 정시에 제야 가제 이 이지기로 이지 하는 이지 가서 생다이 책으로 이 좋아요. 많이 하고 가제 이게 tun지다 그게 부셔다 렉처를 되면 대수이 아니 건주주에서
So Rinpoche says, well, there's no need to have any kind of war over religions. It doesn't really make sense. But whether it takes place or not, well, we can have an influence on that. It's our own behavior with regard to other religions. So if we live in harmony with other religions, if we respect them, if we tolerate them, accept them, then with this kind of attitude, other religions, other followers of different religions will feel themselves understood, etc. So it will create some kind of closeness. So we personally can contribute to this. We can make kind of influence the situation right now. So to be more understanding, to be more tolerant, to have respect for other religions, to respect them, etc. Instead of saying us and them. If we kind of create this gap by differentiating my own and those of others, that of course will lead to conflict. And that way Rinpoche says, well, we ourselves should contribute to harmony between the different religions.
Rinpoche, this will be the last question, and I'm going to combine two questions together. And it says, thank you for your wise words. Could you please explain positive and negative aspects of thinking about oneself, i.e. self-centered? The second question is about a similar thing. It says about loving yourself. People say that you have to love yourself first, then you will love others. What do you think about loving yourself and loving others? And this will be the last question.
Thinking of yourself, what do you mean by thinking of yourself?
Self-centered thinking.
So, with regard to self-centeredness or self-cherishing, as it's also called, so I said, like, what are the disadvantages and advantages? And Rinpoche says there's no advantage to self-centeredness. It only has disadvantages. So basically, when we talk about self-cherishing or self-centeredness, the way it is defined in Buddhist terms is a type of attitude that sees oneself, one's own well-being to be more important than that of others. So at the expense of others' well-being, one looks after oneself, one neglects the well-being of others. And that is something that actually harms us. This is a very harmful attitude. Of course, we need to look after ourselves. Of course, we need to look after ourselves because we're saying, well, who would if we don't look after ourselves? We need to, of course, care for ourselves, but not at the expense of others. So So it's important that we work for the benefit of others, that we consider also the welfare of others, that we don't just consider our own. And the more we consider the welfare of others, the more we care for others, the greater our own benefit. So it's actually one of the side effects of the attitude that cherishes others, the attitude that considers others to be more important. As a side effect of that, we will actually have great benefit. So, on the other hand, if we look after ourselves, but then to do so, we bully others, we neglect others, then we actually create our own suffering. We create more sufferings for ourselves. In that way, therefore, this kind of self-centered attitude that neglects or that ignores the welfare of others is only harmful. So of course, I'm just saying that with regard to having love and compassion for oneself in order to then be able to have it for others, there's no fault with that. So I'm just saying, well, you have this idea of self-hatred, which in the West in particular meets people who talk about hating themselves, so not liking themselves. But Rinpoche says this kind of, well, of course, this kind of attitude is very harmful, but it actually comes from a type of exaggerated attachment to the I. So it's a very strong attachment, self-attachment, and the self-hatred is the result of not being able to succeed in a certain way. So to have great expectations with regard to one's own success, etc., and when one is not able to accomplish that, then hatred will take the place of attachment. And that is really dangerous in the sense that people will commit suicide because of that, because of failing, because of certain failures, etc. So not being able to bear a certain failure, then they jump off a building, they jump off a bridge, they shoot themselves, and they may even go to the extent of killing a lot of other people. So these shootings in schools, etc. So Rinpoche talked about the United States, a lot of shootings there, or in New Zealand not so long ago. So all those are the result of these types of attitudes.
I would now request Tenzin Kungala from Office of Tibet to deliver a vote of thanks on behalf of all the organizers.
So Rinpoche would like to thank all of you who have come here today. Well, this is actually a holiday for for you. So you worked really hard. So you came even in the morning, you're here even now. You've listened patiently, you've been patiently listening and thinking, etc. So therefore, Rinpoche would like to thank you for doing so. But also Rinpoche would like to give a special thanks to all those who made this event possible, to all the organizers. So for those, the representatives of, I don't know all the Tibetan names of the organization, like the Tibetan representative?
Office of Tibet.
Office of Tibet, sorry. Office of Tibet.
Community.
Oh, the Tibetan community of Britain, then those from Jamyang Buddhist Center. So Rinpoche would like to thank all of you who worked so hard, but also many of you have been volunteering. Rinpoche says he doesn't remember the names of everyone, but those who put these chairs together, who for many days have now been working very hard, volunteering, making all this possible. So Rinpoche would like to express a special thank to all of you volunteering, working so hard, even though Rinpoche doesn't remember all of your names, but yes, a special thank you to all. So not just this event, but any kind of event in the UK. No. All of those working so hard to make Rinpoche's visit here in the UK possible. So I would like to thank all of
you. It is now my great privilege and honor to deliver the word of thanks in the presence of His Eminence, the Seventh Gyabje Yongzin Ling Rinpoche. First and foremost, I would like to thank Rinpoche for his presence here today and for his generosity, his time, having spent here since early this morning, and for his incredible speech here today, as well as answering all the interesting and challenging questions that were put forward by the audience. So first and foremost, I would like to thank Rinpoche for everything. First, for the understanding of many of you who may not be aware of his visit, His Eminence Ling Rinpoche arrived here on Saturday at the London Heathrow Airport, bringing with him sunshine and warmth that is very much required here. And he will be here in the UK until the 28th of April, and this is his first ever visit to the United Kingdom. So we welcome him. I will take this opportunity to thank a very important person here, our translator, Geshe Kesan, who has very kindly been the English voice of Rinpoche. So thank you so much. Like Rinpoche rightly said, there's been a lot of effort into bringing this event to a fruition, and I would like to, acknowledge all of them who have helped us prepare for this event and also for the other events that we have held yesterday. So first and foremost, I would like to acknowledge the advice and guidance of the representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who has been guiding us throughout these organizing of this visit. And also everyone at the Jamyang Buddhist Center, all the trustees, and Jackie and the wonderful team at the Jamyang Buddhist Center. Thank you so much. And all the council members of the Tibetan community in Britain, starting with the chairman and also the advisors for helping us guide through all these events. Thank you so much. But I think a big thank you, just like Rinpoche said, to all the volunteers who have been here. Some of them have been here since early morning, 6 a.m. today. So, like Rinpoche said, we will not be able to name each and every one of you, but we are very thankful to all of you, all the volunteers who have volunteered for the Tibetan House Trust, for the Jain Buddhist Center, for the Tibetan community in Britain. A big thank you to all of you. And on behalf of the organizers, our thank you also to all you wonderful people who have turned up here to listen to Rinpoche speak. So we would like to say a big thank you to all of you for your time here and also for your questions. And last but not the least, on behalf of all of us who have gathered here and also on behalf of all others who are here in their thoughts, we would like to wish Rinpoche a very successful visit to the UK here and hope that and pray that you will come here again and again. Thank you so much.